What's up, buddies, and welcome into the Playmakers Blueprint. I'm your girl, Derrick Goss, and this is the podcast where we get to focus on crafting champions and shaping leaders. And I don't know if you guys know what that means. Let me break it down. We're crafting champions, basically meaning the things that we learned on the court, the field, the track, and how we implement those things into your everyday workplace. You want to be able to be an elite athlete, along with being just an elite, amazing person as well. And this is the podcast where you can do so. And I'm so happy to have one of my absolute favorites on the podcast. And I say that every single time, but it doesn't get much better than this guy right here. Let me go right into the bio, okay?
Okay.
Derrick Goss, okay? Football, all conference, all county, and honorable mention, all state in high school. Played basketball and got interest at Temple under the John Chaney era as his first year head coach. Received an athletic scholarship to Morehouse College, HBCU proud. All city as a sophomore at Morehouse College. You have been coaching youth and summer league since '96 and ended up stopping coaching in 2023. And you started coaching high school girls basketball from 2016 to 2024. You have been dating and married to the same young lady since 1983 and have had 4 outstanding children, myself included. Please welcome in my dad to the Playmakers Blueprint, Derrick Goss. How you doing, Dad?
Doing well. I'm glad to be here.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Even though you didn't have a choice, we are here. And I was like, and he has stated that he's usually the behind the scenes guy, not super. Well, I feel like you're pretty comfortable in front of people and cameras.
I can talk and I can speak in front of people, just not in this new millennial.
Please. No, you're going to do great. So I like to start off with just a few rapid questions, get everyone kind of comfortable, acclimated, and really just kind of dive right in before the podcast. Okay. All right, here we go. Ready? And what's your favorite pregame hype song?
Used to be The Show by Dougie Fresh, but now it is You Saw the Best of Me by Marvin.
Okay. Okay. Most influential coach?
I have to give a shout out to Willie Hill, who was my defensive coordinator coach at Morehouse College. My aunt also at Morehouse College. Bill Clore, very short stint, but very integral part of my journey as well. He was my last high school football coach.
Well, I feel like that was a rapid question. These are the quick questions. It's okay. No, that was great. I'll ask you another one. Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Definitely a morning person now.
Okay. What is your favorite date spot?
My favorite date spot is anywhere with my wife.
Oh, love that. Okay, we'll stop there. Well, welcome in, Dad. Thanks again. This is something that's super new to me, and this is something that I want to continue to grow and to see evolve. So, who better to have than some of my favorite people?
Thank you. Thank you for having me once again.
Of course.
And of course, I'm so proud of you just in general and being able to do this, being able to host and bring folks on to hopefully enlighten and make an impact, positive impact to somebody else's life.
Absolutely. That's what we're here for. I love that. So I want to introduce the topic of the podcast today, which is leadership. Okay. And again, I could not have asked a better person for this episode, because you're a leader in the home, you're a leader in the community, you're a leader by coaching, you're a leader in your career and things. So, leadership is one of those big, big things that I think everyone can learn from and keep on getting better at and strive to be. So let's dive right into it. So when did you start playing football or basketball?
Started playing, actually at the age of 6 or 7, and started playing football. Following my brother, he's the example that was laid out for me. I was obviously competing against him as a little kid, but he would always help me and push me and strive for me to be the best as well.
So you kind of followed big brother's steps there.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys ever play against each other?
No. Unfortunately, our age difference is just too great. We're 7 years apart.
Oh. He would have whooped you, Uncle D?
Back then.
Okay.
But once again, because he was my leader. I mean, I was looking at him for everything, and he would guide me. Yeah. Matter of fact, I got to say, when you talked about coaches, he was actually one of my baseball coaches early on. So,
I didn't know.
Yep. So he was a teenage coach, and yeah, I was his. I was one of his players.
Okay. Did he give you a hard time?
Absolutely. We used to fight all the time.
As he should have. Okay. I know how you raised me, so I don't know. Okay, and so let's go into just the high school.
As reference to high school, so I was pretty much kind of an introvert, but where I could express myself, where I could get my frustrations out, where I could thrive at was on the football field, the basketball court, the track, and or the baseball diamond.
Okay.
So I've had the opportunity of playing all four during my high school career.
I love that. Oh, all four during the high school?
Yep.
Ow.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
As a junior, as a sophomore in high school, I played football, varsity basketball, ran varsity track, and the JV team had some injuries. JV baseball team had some injuries. I'm sorry, the varsity baseball team had some injuries. Pulled folks up, and literally they just asked me. They just say, "Just come to the games." And so literally, I was literally doing something for a game or meet 4 or 5 days a week.
Oh.
During the spring of my summer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You talk about like that's super one. You talk about burnout. Did you ever feel like that was too much, or a little overwhelmed? Did you love it?
I thrived. I loved that. I mean, it was great.
Okay.
It was great. It really got me back into baseball because I kind of stopped playing baseball as an 8th grader.
Okay.
But once again, picked it back up as that sophomore year, and that was the only year that I did that.
Okay.
But it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Okay. So when did you feel like those leadership qualities started to come into your sports? Was that kind of as a freshman, you're like, "Hey, I'm here," or did you kind of like get your feet wet and now start taking over the leadership roles as those upperclassmen start to lead?
As far as leadership on the field, start there. Once again, I was one that led by example. I think I always worked out and did everything that was required, and took it as always a step above because I was a dreamer. Thought I was going to garnish those NFL fields, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But no worries there. But we just have. I don't think I was really a outspoken leader at any point in time in my athletics. My leadership really came in the business world, and it came primarily from just understanding teamwork. Understanding how to motivate your teammates, having to push your teammates, and then obviously setting your eyes on whatever objective it was that we need to accomplish and getting it done.
Yeah, that's true. Do you feel like there was a specific leader during your time in high school where you're like, I'm going to model my leadership like that kid?
In high school, no.
Okay.
As a young adult, it was my brother. So he's just go back to college for a second. You had roommates, and I had 2 great roommates, Lawrence Elliott and Daryl Sims. And, we would have our posters on the wall. Daryl Sims was a big Dr. J fan at the time. I can't remember who Bush enjoyed. But I literally had 4 pictures of my brother playing football on my wall. That was my, that was my leadership.
Really?
Yep.
So, I mean, even 7 years apart or not, you guys were close.
Yes.
You guys were close. And I think about, KK and I's relationship. I'm almost 10 years older than her. And I honestly didn't feel like I started getting close with KK until COVID because everyone was home and things like that. So how important is it to have someone close to you that can still like influence you in that way of leadership or hard work or just being the young Black man that you want to see yourself be?
It's very important. It's very important to be able to have those tangible leaders. Once again, I say tangible, you may not necessarily physically be able to reach and touch. And, with him living in Northern California for a period of time, me in Southern Cal, and then me in Georgia, him in California, then both of us were in Georgia. So we've had our times where we've been apart, but we've always been close. And I can always pick up the phone. I can always call him, so that's never an issue there.
I love that. Big shout out to Uncle D. He's going to be on the podcast too on these days. So we'll have to get him in here, see if he says the same things about you. Okay, so from high school to college.
Yeah.
Okay, so Morehouse, HBCU. How did you pick HBCU like Morehouse College over some of the other colleges that were looking at you?
So we actually, my high school team actually did quite well. We were probably top 12 in the state of Georgia. Had some fantastic teams that we had to play against. Our big rival Southwest DeKalb. Had some outstanding athletes, and guys that I know, and we talking and we communicate today. And it's funny because like I said, in high school we weren't talking or weren't friends, but now we kind of have that bond. But going back to the week prior, and once again, this is all pre-internet, so literally, literally, if they didn't come see you or somebody didn't say something or you sent a film or whatever, and my mother and father just were not really acclimated on some of the athletic scholarships and how we should do certain things. Literally the week before we lost, the week before we got knocked out of the playoffs, I received a letter from each SEC school, and prior to that week, and unfortunately, since we didn't proceed, I was kind of new in the area, so I kind of fell off the radar. The big schools, or the schools that were interested, were Morehouse, Howard, and the Citadel. So the Citadel is a military school. Obviously, Howard and Morehouse are HBCUs. And I primarily chose Morehouse because I had literally just moved to Atlanta from California. So I had been in Atlanta for less than a year. So even if I went to the local school in Atlanta, Georgia, it was still new to me. I remember showing up to Morehouse, and when they talked about getting involved in different clubs, I got involved in the California club. Even though I was graduated from Georgia, I got because once again, people still, because I had a California accent, so the people really didn't understand me sometimes. So that was neat. But going from high school to college, the level of work that Willie Hill put us through, and once again, I thank him for it. Literally, those first 2 weeks, it was all a haze. It was all a haze. So the defense, which he was a defense coordinator, we would have a practice from 4 to 5:30. Then we would practice with 6 to 8 to everyone else. Then as a freshman, I would have to go do testing to see where I placed, and it's just how they did it back then. Different classes and so on and so forth. So, from 9 until maybe 3, I'm testing or doing something academically. Then we have practice from 5 to 7. Then go and eat. Then at 8, we or at 8:30, we would go over some film or have some breakout sessions, and then we would call it a night, and then do it again.
Get up and do it again. Yep. And you bring the chills. I don't think you fully prepared me for that college life, because it was the exact same way. Every single second of the day was planned out to do something. So where when I went overseas, I was like, what? We went to practice 3 times a week overseas that first year. And I'm like,
I don't know how to act.
Now what? Am I supposed to be doing here? I feel really uncomfortable. Didn't know how to turn the brain off. I learned. But no, that's so that's awesome. So you kind of got right in. You made an impact. You got acclimated. That's why I made an impact. You didn't get kicked off the team.
Correct.
So you were, I think especially it's harder in football to come right out.
Well,
it's a different physicality game.
As a freshman, I was I traveled and dressed for every game. I was on the special teams, so I immediately played, and sparingly in a couple of games actually got onto the field for a couple of plays. Had some great leaders there. Shrook, and he's no longer with us. Recently passed away, and another gentleman, Kevin McCowan, from Greece. And then and Shrook was a defensive back. I loved him, and I used to watch him, and he was in Omega. And I remember every time he would make a big play, he would go and throw up the hooks, and all the cues in the stands, they would start barking. It was great. I loved it. Greece was also cute, and actually ended up being, and it was funny because we had kind of gotten obviously separated over the years, but during during the 9/11 incident.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the physicians, he being a physician, who was in New York at that time. And you see pictures of him helping folks. And I was like, man, that's my guy.
That's awesome.
That's my guy.
Yeah, yeah.
Big shout out to both of those guys.
Yeah.
Also, give a shout out to Mac D, who Mac D came from Columbia High School in DeKalb County. We, rival high schools that from Redan. But Mac D was a preseason All American going into his season, that final season. Outstanding guy, love him. And I've been able to recently connect with him as well. So, fantastic.
I love that. And I can't believe I didn't put this in your bio. Please grace the people. What is the name of your fraternity?
Kappa Psi.
So you're a Kappa.
Yep.
And you pledged
1987.
1987.
Spring 1987.
I know why you decided to, but please tell the people as to what kind of, why that fraternity over the other ones.
So once again, all the other fraternities are fantastic. As I mentioned, my brother is a very special part, holds a high place in my life, and he's a member, pledged Iota Sigma, UC Davis, actually on their charter line, so he's in their history.
Wow.
And he was a member of was it 3279 is when he pledged. So
okay, that's awesome. No idea what that means, but I know that's awesome. Okay, all right. So your leadership style, okay. How do you lead others, or how do you get others to follow you, specifically on the field? What was your thing?
On the field, once again, I led by example. I would be the one that would encourage. I know there's some that lead, in different formats, but the way that I led was by encouraging, as well as serving. So if a teammate needed help with school or something, it was nothing for us to, hey man, let's cook up after workouts and get it together.
Yeah.
If I needed to assist or bring them or wake them up, as I mentioned, that those early morning exercises that we did my freshman year, and we had a good group of freshman guys there. All of us, we would, hold each other accountable. Man, go get such and such because he hasn't, gotten out. So we would do those, and we would, make sure that each of us would be pulling the other, if needed. So encouraging them as much as possible. So I think, and we just had this as our sermon today, servanthood, leading by serving as well. That's also a leadership style for me as well.
Yes. So much to unpack there because, God, it was so good. So I think that is kind of my leadership style too. Okay. I was so big on making sure that I was doing what I'm supposed to do, because how can I tell the next person to do things when I didn't even do it? Correct. So I was always trying to go hard. I was always trying to lead by the example, trying to put in the extra work so that my teammates, especially the ones coming after me, could see what it took to get to certain spots. I think as I got older, I think my leadership style changed though. It wasn't necessarily enough just to lead by example in college. I think I had a lot to give as far as like coming from a winning system in high school and being around a winning group and playing and starting as a freshman to where, that was very quiet. Like that was still me leading by example. Absolutely. Just very, very quiet. Absolutely. But when I started being sophomore year and I could see the new people coming in, and then also people trusted me and my input too. I feel like they gave me a voice to say so. Now I'm not cussing anybody out. I'm not yelling anything. I think I started bringing people to the side or hanging out with people a little bit more. You know what I mean?
Just giving them that encouragement.
Yes.
You can do this. You got it.
Right. And I'm not saying it meant more than, the next person, but I could definitely feel like the switch. Because I was quiet. I was energetic, but I was quiet. Okay. It was always like, you missed a shot. It's okay. You got the next one. Right. Instead of like, I've seen you hit the shot.
Right.
You can make the shot.
Right.
You know what I mean? A little bit more direct in those ways. You know what I mean? When did you realize you had some of these leadership qualities that meant something to other people? And I want to emphasize meaningful to other people. You can't really be a good leader without followers.
Right.
You can think you're a good leader all you want, but if you ain't got to fight it back, it doesn't matter. So, what was your thing? Do you have a story, or do you have a pivotal moment where you were like, I'm a leader. I'm a leader. I'm not a leader.
I remember coming to Indianapolis. It was a transitional period in our time, so we were transitioning from Atlanta to Indy. I was working at the Black Expo fair. And once again, when I first got here, I didn't move here with a job in hand, so I had to come find. And while I was looking for work in my field, I was just doing other things just to make sure I was, providing for as much as I could for the family.
Right.
So, long and short of it, I was doing Procter and Gamble. They were releasing some new Hawaiian Punch, and they used to do those big cans, big tin cans, and that was just how they served them. They started doing them in single serving, so that was their first iteration of that. I was able to be on the team that was passing out, literally giving free drinks, to people at Black Expo. And boy, there was another event just before that. I can't quite remember, but it was all around 4th of July. And, so we were outside on that one, and being a military park downtown, and we're giving things out. And, I was, of age.
Yeah.
As far as, I wasn't the oldest, I wasn't the youngest, but there were some people younger than me that were there. But I just remember saying, hey guys, come on, let's just go hit this. Let's do this. And they would follow me, and we would get things done.
I love that.
If there were some issues that was going on, I would just try to mitigate it as much as I possibly could without having to involve our manager. And if we needed to, then I would kind of help them get there or get to a point where this is where we need to turn it over. This is how you turn it over. This is how you escalate it to your managers to, once again, just to make sure it's transitioned properly. But just making sure that group and that team, and as we went out and did those things, that we were successful at doing it. So that was probably one of the first iterations where I said, man, I can do this.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where, because that was way after football.
Mm-hmm.
People had already saw you as a leader in football.
Correct.
But you didn't realize your real leadership impact until way after,
Correct.
which I think is really interesting.
Yeah.
Being able to step out on faith and start leading, doing something, and stepping up to the plate.
Yeah.
More so.
Exactly.
Taking the responsibility. It's like, well, no one else is going to do that.
Yeah.
You just kind of slid right into that.
Right.
Especially for your community and things. So why at that moment did you feel like you need to be the one to get things done?
Well, and it kind of transpired out of that, because what I had did there, from those two instances, the organization that was running these events for Procter and Gamble, they approached me and they said, hey, Derrick, saw what you did during the events over here. We would like for you to continue to distribute IC, within the Indianapolis area. So my job at that point in time was to find events that, surrounded family and kids. And we would, once again, either myself and one or two others, but we would distribute free drinks, right? Which was very challenging, because you think, oh boy, I'm gonna go to the Indianapolis Zoo. No, we're sponsored by this organization. We're going to go here. Oh, we're sponsored by that. And once again, not knowing that industry and knowing how that worked, that was eye-opening. But once again, for about a 4-month period, that's what I did. Literally, that's all that I did, and that was my job and how I made money. And we finally finished the event, having our final, allotment of drink being distributed in Cincinnati, Ohio, where Procter & Gamble was based, at their zoo. So it was a big to-do for me to come out, and so on and so forth. So, like I said, had a great time. I had a driver. I had a refrigerated truck that I had to manage. Had to make sure that all the expenses were paid. So on so. So it was great. It was a great opportunity. Yeah. And I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think that speaks a lot to who you are today as well. So as we transition over into your career to life, okay. Well, first of all, tell us a little bit about what you do right now.
What I do now is I'm a project manager. What I had always been, and I am a IT project manager, so I've always been in information technology.
He's a nerd.
But prior to that, I'm very proud of it.
Yes.
And prior to that, I was actually a systems engineer,
Okay.
Microsoft systems engineer. So I was a certified engineer. I would, work on Active Directory and Microsoft products and so on and so forth, supporting. And I worked for a consulting company where I was on a couple of engagements where they needed me to kind of switch hats.
Yeah.
And literally, and I talked about being an introvert early on, so let me explain that real quick.
Oh boy.
So the transition between collegiate athletes or collegiate athletics and the real world, I had an opportunity of meeting a gentleman by the name of Michael Covington, who happens to be my frat brother as well. We did some. We had a couple of businesses in Atlanta, and I would, like I said, I was just very introverted, but his outwardness, his openness, the ability to talk to people. I mean, I couldn't do this, nothing prior to that, but since then I've been able to do this. So having that outward, a little bit more of an outward focus.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Yeah.
I say you and De'Ara are probably, De'Ara was a little more introverted and probably is a little still compared to you, and then you're my extroverted like me. So, a mixture of both of you guys. But once again, being an engineer, they selected me. They said, well, Derrick, we want you to actually kind of just manage the project.
Yeah.
I had not done any project managing. They said, well, Derrick, we want you to manage the project primarily because we see you can communicate, you can talk, you don't have a problem talking to people.
Right.
Sometimes us engineers and nerds, we can, talk and communicate with our computers a lot more than we can with the real world. But so I have the ability to do both. So that's kind of how I got my start there. And then I also had the opportunity or the knack to, when there were problem situations, that I could kind of come in and once again, just kind of direct the focus to what the solution is, direct the energy so that people aren't blaming one another, and that we can get that team moving forward. So I had the opportunity, I haven't been able to do that a couple of times. So that opened the door for me to be a project manager. Started being a full-time project manager in 2010.
Okay.
So since then, that's all that I've done. And I really, really do enjoy it.
I love that. I love that. You see how many steps, though, you had to take to get...
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I mean, I had one of the jobs I've had, was, like I said, I was a manager of desktop services for a local hospital here.
Yeah.
And I had to get up and stand up and basically speak to all of the nurses that attended that, that seminar, just some of the do's and don'ts. And I had one of my tech friends say, man, how do you do that? I can't do that. Right. And some of that foundation comes because at Morehouse College, we had to take a speech class. So we had to get up and do speeches in class. And I still draw from those experiences today.
See, and the way God works, okay?
Oh, boy. Can't stop giving him enough credit.
Because he single-handedly just pinpoint exactly where you were supposed to be at the exact time, doing this exact thing with this exact mindset to get you exact place that you are now.
Yes.
And it was so perfectly designed for you that now you get to bless us. And I'm talking about not just y'all, but like I see so much of like both me and mom and me. You know what I mean? And I definitely get my outgoing personality from you, and like just how you're able to talk and what you do. And I remember like having way back when I was younger doing 5th and 6th grade presentations, and just kind of like you hearing like how you kind of move, and they just kind of trickle down to me. So where communication was a given because you would present all the time in communication. I would Sometimes they'll wing it, which I would not advise.
Right.
But there were so many great things that I was able to just to pinpoint from you and your leadership, not only with how you work with your clients, or your clients, with your coworkers, but like how you work here at home too, and just kind of like how you're able to. It's not even a control thing, you know. You make people want to be better when you enter the room. But why? You have it's something that you have that makes people, want to level up. You know what I mean? Want to be more distinguished. Want to be more. Again, nobody's perfect.
Right.
But just the servant. What you go? The servanthood. The servanthood in which you provide. Yeah. You're not asking anybody to do anything that you already aren't doing for yourself. Right. You have high expectations, I think, for people. I think the accountability comes from a place of love. It's not like, you're not just bossing people around. You're having and giving energy and connections with people that make them want to also do those same things. You know what I mean? So let's talk about how, again, when people are around you, people want to be better. Okay. You met your now wife when you guys were how old?
We were 17. 1983 was when we met.
That's high school sweetheart.
Yes, high school sweetheart. Yeah. Once again, I had moved from California to Georgia. And we just hit it off. And I mean, it was just a relationship. And the reason why I pause is because the way I am now and thinking about her is I always see the 17-year-old girl that I met today. I mean, it's I can't say enough that her impact on me to make me want to become a better person as well. But once again, met her, started offering to carry her books and things like that in school, and would do that, and her and her friend approached me. And once again, being the new guy, her friend was very outgoing. Belinda's not very outgoing, and once again, I was kind of in my introvert stage as well. But her friend comes up and starts talking, so on and so forth, and introducing it. And of course, Belinda's going to say I never spoke or talked to or looked at her because I was looking at her friend, who reminds me of my sister-in-law. She looks very much like
Annie, shout out Annie.
And I said, that was literally the first words I said. You look like my sister-in-law. Once again, but met and started talking with Belinda and just fell in love with her.
Wow.
The biggest thing I can say there, and people don't know, but we had dated for we started dating November 12th, 1983. We graduated, and we literally were going to college. I'm going to Morehouse. She's going to Georgia State. And I just asked her a question. Just one day, we were driving to the mall. I said, what's the chances of us getting married? Ooh. And she said 50%, 50-50. And I was hurt. I was hurt. I'm like, I'm at 89. I kid you not.
Really? I was playing. What? What did you say?
I told her I was hurt. So, it's 50-50. That's all I got.
You would honestly that.
But she, I told her, I'm like, I'm at 80, 85, 90. I'm ready. So, short story, we had an opportunity to visit my brother and sister-in-law in California. And I was going to talk her into going to Lake Tahoe and getting married.
Eloping? Ooh! Glad you didn't do that one. You were going to force her into
force her.
But you were going to sweet talk her in a way.
No, we talked about it and we decided not to do it. And we both had growing to do.
Yeah,
and we did. And even through our early years of marriage, we still had growing to do.
Yes.
We always talk about, different challenges that we have gone through. One of the other things that, I'm sorry to cut away from that, is prior to us getting married, we had the opportunity of doing some couples retreats. And once again, they were already 4 people who were already married, but since we were, and at that point, we were engaged. Yes. We were probably a year away from being married.
I love love that.
But that really set a great foundation on my roles, my responsibility, her roles, her responsibility. And we always have and once again, one of the churches that we went to would have couple retreats.
Yeah.
And one of the big themes is a table for three.
Yeah.
Because if she's working to get closer to God, I'm working to get closer to God. Just by us getting closer to God, we're going to get closer to each other.
Wow.
And so it was a table for three.
Wow. So I love that.
It was a thing that stuck with me.
Yeah, seriously. How are you a leader in your marriage?
I know my role, once again, and it's laid out in the scriptures as far as what I should be doing. Once again, there's things that we're going to delegate. There's things that we're going to, if she's better at doing this, definitely let her do it, whether it's a quote unquote male job, or not. So some of those funny nuances.
Yeah.
As you know, we would never fight in front of you guys.
Right.
And we always, took our and neither one of us are, once again, I'll just say, are very hot headed.
Right.
We're probably pretty level, and typically, if we're quiet, that's probably more of a concern than if you hear anything. And once again, just making sure that I am doing my part, not because I love her, but also because God requires me to do this, because that is his child. And he has blessed me by giving her to me.
Wow.
So I do not want to abuse that relationship.
That mindset, right, is, I think being a leader in marriage doesn't mean like you got to be a macho and, you're above her in that sense. But like the way that God has instilled those principles, into you. What kind of work did you have to do to get that to be your foundation?
Oh, boy, a lot. So, and actually, I'm gonna go back to those couple retreats that we took just before we got married. Those were pivotal points in our relationship where it kind of laid the foundation of what we should be doing. Once again, I know that if my wife doesn't do something that I like, or does something that I don't like, I, it's not. I can't get her to change. I just want her to be close to God, and God will make the change. God will make that change. Her. Same with me. Things that I'm doing or was doing or will do, that she doesn't like. God's going to make that change in me. And my responsibility is to think about, don't think about me and my needs today. I want to think about her and her needs.
Say it.
I want to put her first in everything that I'm doing and thinking about. Which, once again, wasn't always there, but you got it. It takes work. If anybody knows, and anybody been married for any length of time, marriage is work. Marriage is work.
Your leadership, as a father. Yes. Okay, so just to stem off, I think it is such a big thing that like I wouldn't mind my children acting like their dad. Okay. And all be all. Okay. Like that is such a big thing, for me. I don't want to look and be like, do I really want my children to be like their dad? You know what I mean? Right. So what does the leadership in fatherhood, look like? I feel like, especially as a Black male, there's so much pressure that's put on Black men, Black fathers, providers, and things. Like, what do you feel like your role is? And I have a short, funny story to go along with that. But it's a good one. But what is your leadership role just as a father?
As a father, once again, I'm the provider, so I want to make sure that we have the necessities of what's needed. I want to make sure that you guys know that you're loved. One of my big things, especially having 3 girls, is that I would allow you guys the freedom to talk and to speak. To let me know how you're feeling. Now, how you're feeling and what we have to do may not match, but once again, I want you to be able to express that. I never wanted to be the overbearing father that you couldn't come talk to me about anything. So and that goes with each of you. With Harrison, once again, and I have to say, out of all the spankings that I've delved, he's gotten the hardest spanking.
Yes, he should have. We don't condone abuse out here.
But once again, just to understand, and hopefully he's looking at me. Once again, we don't always have the good days. We don't always have the right days. We don't always put on the right foot, but we have to make an attempt. We have to make an effort to do the right thing at the right time.
Right.
So those are just the things that I want all of my children to be able to do, just to do the right thing at the right time.
Quick funny story. So I was in my first year overseas, so I'm, a young adult. Still a young adult, but young adult. And I text my dad this really long, sweet message about, thank you so much for, taking your time and understanding and loving me the right way and just boom, 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 doing this, that, and the other. Just all these beautiful things that I felt like you did as a father. His response back to me was, no problem, sweetie. But I was like, I felt offended because I'm like, I'll just pour my heart out and all I get to say is there's no. And his response back to that was, "It's my job. I can't get praise for something I'm supposed to do." Like, again, going back to with God, with mom, clearly God has picked you to be my father. Mm-hmm. And what that looks like is exactly what you're doing. And so there was never ever been any type of praise that you felt like, I don't need praise for the things I'm supposed to do, right. Quote unquote. Right. However, I'm very thankful that you do those things. I will tell you until you're no longer with us. Right. That I'm very happy because not everyone had the father that I got to have growing up. And especially in a young woman's life, a young girl's life, it is so pivotal to have. I think at any standpoint too. I think kids typically need both parents for different things. Exactly. And you guys did such a great job.
I give all the credit to your mom, but I did my part.
Mom was amazing.
Mom is the jam.
Okay, do you feel like you guys' parenting styles complemented each other?
Once again, it goes back to the roles and where we got those roles from. I know there were times that she didn't like the way I disciplined you guys. Right. And she would never do it in front of you guys, or in front of you guys. She wouldn't attack me, or wouldn't step in and protect you because she trusted me to not cross the line. But there were times where she would pull me to the side. Do you have to do it? Do you have to? Why can't? And so on and so forth. And I listened. I did listen. Once again, that's not always. Like you said, sometimes guys think I got to this my way or the highway, yada yada yada. And that's not. I mean, most of the time that's not successful. But once again, I want to include my partner. Right. Include Belinda in the decision makings, and sometimes that's seen as a weakness, and really it's not. When you put it in, first of all, when you're both striving to be like or be more like God or be more like Jesus, then we want to be able to make sure that we're passing those traits and those characteristics down to our kids.
And I think you hit it right on the nail, right? So we're all trying to be like Jesus. Yep. And there's going to be shortcomings. Yep. There's going to be mistakes. Yep. There's going to be things where it didn't always go our way, even though we were doing everything right too. Correct. And so and that's just being human, all together. And like you said, a great leader, you said, also follows. Yeah. And that, absolutely. And you listened to your wife. I think followers have an opportunity and that ability to say, "Hey, I am the leader, right? But I need your input just as much as you need mine, and I want your input just as much as you need mine."
And once again, if we can make, and Belinda and I as a union, we can have our decisions, our children, or the way that we raise our children, become representations that do nothing but show God's love and how it's done from a biblical perspective. Once again, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody knows. Yes. Nobody is perfect out here, unfortunately. But we're all striving. Yes. And we're really trying to be. Had you sent me that text today, I probably would have been booing and as I get older, you do get a little bit more emotional because you're older and you're just sentimental, a little bit more sentimental. But I really appreciate the things that you do. Once again, not just from even from just this forum, having this opportunity, having to provide an impact for or assistance for others. That I just think it's great and fantastic that you're able to be that open person and that open book as well.
Yes. Well, you can keep going. Oh, well, Dad, that was awesome. That was more than what I could have, could have said. And I am, I think I'm trying to put my stamp in the world. Not only just in basketball, but outside of basketball too.
Sure.
People have always seen Bria as a basketball player, but I'm someone doing that.
Absolutely.
Then this gives me the opportunity, the platform to do so.
Also, it's good in doing that. And once again, your transition from college athletics to professional athletics was obviously because that's what you did. So your transition, and now you're going to transition at some point in time from professional athletics to a normal career or to a career. And once again, just making sure that you're okay in your own skin, being comfortable in your own skin. Right. I mean, that's big because my transition, I wasn't comfortable in my own skin from athletics to going to,
really?
Yeah. I mean, I had been an athlete for so long, like I said, multiple sports, we didn't focus in on a single sport like you guys do today.
Right.
I mean, the same guys that play football, play basketball, play baseball, run track. I mean, you would have a core group of guys that would do everything. And some of those core groups were better in this sport and better in that sport. Some core groups were better in all of the sports.
Right.
But the point is when you've done that for so long, and you just kind of then it ends. It's like, wow, what do I do?
You look up, where did you go?
Right. What do I do? And so from that perspective, I struggled.
Yeah.
And I always talk. I've talked to you guys. I talked to Harrison. I've talked to Kira, Derrick. And you guys have always had a good transition. I just want to make sure that transition.
Yeah.
Once again, and you take, like you said, you take from what you've learned in athletic, court, field, wherever. Apply it to your life.
You do.
Apply it to your life.
You just do.
Yeah.
And thankfully, because I probably would have still learned these same core values that I have. I'm pretty sure that I would have without but I learned these core values from sports. From you guys, from friends, from loved ones, you know what I mean? All just kind of rooted all in one ball so that when I now begin to blossom into my own person, I'm picking on these same things that I've been talking about. And this is episode 10. 10. And there's so many more just to unpack like who we are. Sure. But yeah, Dan, thank you so much, for being and coming to the Playmakers Blueprint, blessing us with your presence. Okay. Is there anything you want to leave, the listeners as far as leadership, as far as being, just the best version of yourself, letting God kind of work through you?
Well, I would really say, and I have to do this. There's some individuals that are also just impactful in my life. Once again, I had a gentleman by the name of Doug Haynes that I played football with in California. Literally, I've only seen him once since 1983. He actually was flying through Indiana.
Wow.
And we just happened to connect. And we hooked up and we went and hung out. But Doug was he was a gentleman who was on fire for God. And I was aspiring to be like him, or aspiring to pick up his characteristics. And once again, fantastic guy. Doug was actually my fullback. I was a tailback. That's when I played running back then, but he was my fullback. But nonetheless, Doug Haynes. Then when I moved to Georgia, I had a group of guys that really took me in. We still meet and talk on a regular basis. Willie Combs, Rodney Brinkley, Robert Burnett, rest his soul, Skip Nelms, Irish Shepherd, John Boyd, Vincent Zellers. And then our quarterback, Terrence Mathis. Yeah. Actually, Terrence, who was my high school quarterback, actually ended up going to play out in New Mexico State.
Oh, wow.
At that time, he and a gentleman at Duke were battling for a number of catches of all time. Ended up going to the Jets, playing for Atlanta.
Wow.
And he's now the head coach at Morehouse.
No way.
Coming Kevin Jones. Once again, he's coaching at Clark College, HBCU. Obviously, actually, I believe he went to Norfolk State. Yeah. But those guys. Then a couple of guys that didn't play football, Robert Bolden. Like I said, if I forgot anybody, I truly apologize. But just making sure those guys really brought me in. Yeah. And like I said, since COVID, we do a monthly Zoom meeting. Okay. And we've been meeting, and those guys are impactful. And I really want to give them a shout out. Yeah. As far as iron sharpening iron. Yes. Men being able to keep men on task and on point. To call you BS when it's BS, and obviously to give you some love when it's needed. But those guys are really meaningful to me. Like I mentioned, then a couple of and when I left Morehouse, I left after my sophomore year, so I didn't finish my 4 years. Right. And I remember telling Harrison that was a big mistake for me. Wow. I really wish I would have stayed. Harrison, your son, by the way. Harrison, my son. I really wish I would have stayed, but I didn't. And once again, when Kevin had passed, we had a big Zoom call of all of our teammates, and there were guys I had talked to, once again, since the late 80s. But, I had some MacD. I mentioned Kevin McCown, Shrub. I had Jay Boyd, who, the brother who really was a leader on that team that year. And Darrell Webb. I remember Darrell Webb was a gentleman who was a linebacker. That guy he was just intense. I just loved him. So like I said, there's just been so many people that are impactful in my life that I really appreciate. And if I didn't mention you, I truly apologize. But man, I can't express enough love to them and to the impact. Yes. And they may not even know that they've had an impact. And that's the thing. So love it. Listen, they know now. Y'all better watch this episode of the Playmakers Blueprint. No, that's awesome, Dad. And like you said, I think it's a special life. It's consistent. Like you're consistently trying to grow, consistently trying to. Well, either you're getting better or you're getting worse. Exactly. That's just the reality. Exactly. Never complacent. There's no pause. And that's why you're the leader of our family. I'm like, okay. Well, I do have to ask one quick question. You didn't ask me what my favorite quote was. On the rapid fire. Well, that's because you took. Okay, you're right. All right. I'm not even ready for that. Okay. What is your favorite quote? You're only as good as your last play. What does that mean? Whether that last play was great and everybody loves you, you're literally a play away from being the GOAT. Play away from being the scapegoat. Okay. So once again, you got to continue to press forward. Like I said, there's no just staying where you are. You either getting better or you're getting worse. So just want to encourage people to get better. I love that. This is one way. Listen, tuning into this episode, people are definitely going to be done or get better and be inspired. So thank you for that. So thank you for having me. Love my brother. Once again, and those brothers that lift me up, and the brothers that I surround myself with. Dwayne Walker. We ain't getting to walk. Love you, Walker. But that brother, he's once again, just being able to surround yourself with good people. Yes. Good. Well, all right. Well, thank you, Dad, so much for being here. Thank you for having me. This is outstanding, I should say. And honestly, people need people like you. Right. If iron sharpens iron, these kids, right. These youth, they need you. Yeah. And you are impactful, and you're a leader. And I'm so happy to have been able to learn from you. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to yet another episode of the Playmakers Blueprint. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We would love to hear your thoughts. Please don't forget to tune in for the next episode of the Playmakers Blueprint, and we will see you next time. Thank you for tuning in to the Playmakers Blueprint. You can catch me every Monday at 6 p.m. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Catch you next week.